Oh, but they've been digging results out. I mean, they have a pragmatic approach under this manager.
30 on Saturday with Arsenal hosting Tottenham, exclusively live on TalkSport. Arsenal top of the table. They were brilliant against Brentford. I did the game last Sunday. They're top of the table after winning comfortably, taking on a team that obviously comes with another narrative because it's their North London rivals. But Tottenham themselves, despite winning a lot of games and getting over the line, haven't been playing particularly well. I did their Marseille game, their Sporting game. They weren't particularly impressive in either of those two matches.
Yeah, no, but they've been digging results out. I mean, they have a pragmatic approach under this manager. They've got a bit of steel about them that they've been accused by everybody of not having in their recent history. That's not just a new thing. And I just feel it's a different Spurs now. And I take your point. Arsenal have been fabulous. I saw them play at Bournemouth. And the question is, can they keep that going for a hard 9 months? With the younger players, I think that's very difficult.
Does it show you how important a manager can be in the fact that
the manager's massively important?
Antonio Conte has transformed the mentality of this Tottenham group.
He's been afforded the opportunity to transform the mentality because he's been supported by the club. But they made the appointment. Antonio Conte is an outstanding manager, and of course, the manager is the players go and win the games, but a manager picks the players, structures the players, gets the players into a condition to be able to go and win games. The manager is the most important person in a football club besides the person that pays the bills. Absolutely. So the manager setting a blueprint. Antonio Conte is a significant manager for Tottenham Hotspur because he's a departure. Mourinho was a significant manager because he departed from certain types of manager that Daniel Levy would take and control and develop and be able to manipulate. Pochettino, taken from Southampton, was a certain type of manager until it became difficult for him to manage. When you start putting heavyweights like Conte in the dugout, you've got to support them. Otherwise, what's the point of having them?
What he does, from the outside looking in, he pushes the players to almost the point where he's falling out with them.
Which is
gets the most of them. I mean, it takes the players out of their comfort chairs. There's no easy ride at Spurs anymore for players who are slacking.
And if they win, they'll go with it. And if they don't, they won't.
In terms of, obviously, the two different approaches, Mikel Arteta, long-term approach, slow but sure, getting the turnover of the dressing room, getting control of the club, and then Antonio Conte coming in, immediately stamping his authority on the group. Which one of them do you think is better placed to win a trophy first? Because that's what both these two teams.
I think it's a cup,
isn't he?
I think it's a cup for these two teams where they are right now. Well, I think Spurs, as you alluded to, I think Spurs can win games without being at their best.
What about Arsenal? Are they serious title contenders, despite the fact that they're top of the table?
I think they're serious top four. I think everyone's going to play a poor second to City, unless City run into a series of injuries to main players.
Do you think they're significantly more resolute now, Arsenal? I mean, or have they just been lightly raced in the early part of the season?
Well, they've had a good run of fixtures. Look, this is a big test for them at the weekend. I come back to, they've got a young squad who, over a season, it's 9 hard months of, hard work, concentration, disappointments. How you deal with those disappointments?
So can Tottenham win the league?
No.
Can they contend to win the league? Can they push Manchester City?
No.
Why?
Because they're not good enough. And if Liverpool get their boots on, they won't be good enough to contend with Liverpool, and Liverpool are not good enough to contend with Man City. So Tottenham and Arsenal will be further down the pecking order.
So we're giving up in September in terms of a title race?
Well, it's not a case of giving up, it's a case of being realistic. Nobody would expect Arsenal to win the Premier League, and no one would expect to. There's no point building a narrative that's a ridiculous one. No one expects these teams to be winning Premier Leagues. They expect them to be competing and bridging the gap. And maybe Tottenham drop out of the Champions League if they do and play in the Europa League. I think you can only play in the Europa League if you've dropped out of the Champions League at the group stages. Is that right? Or can
Correct.
You go in after the 16s?
No.
Okay, so maybe they won't get into that situation because maybe they should qualify from the Champions League group, albeit they've lost their last game. But notwithstanding, I would expect them to qualify. I do expect Tottenham to win something with Conte. It certainly won't be a Premier League and it won't be a Champions League. It might be a League Cup or an FA Cup. And I think you'll get a lot, very early as it is, you'll see the development. All we're talking about is the potential of these two teams. The potential of these two teams, Arsenal and Tottenham. Now, you might see some outcome on Saturday of how these two teams shape up against one another because they are vying for the same space, really, aren't they, Graham?
Yeah, I think this is a big test for Arsenal. I think it's Would this be their hardest game of the season so far? They went to United,
Well, they went to
didn't
United, didn't they?
But they did well at
Yeah,
United.
they've beaten Palace, they've beaten Brentford.
Yeah, they did well at United. You know, you're thinking when they went behind, they got back into it. You're thinking they're now on the front foot. Then they
They
conceded
were
one.
unlucky to have a goal disallowed in that match as well.
Yeah, and they have a goal. They concede one on the breakaway, as I remember. So I mean, this will be an interesting watch. You know, Arsenal, I think, only attempt to play one way. Tried to be dominant.
If you were picking between the two sides, who's likely to be more successful? And I know everyone can say success is relative. Who would you pick?
As I said
Spurs
to
or Arsenal?
Sam, I think, you know, when you can win games at not being at your best,
Then it's Spurs, then, right?
yeah, and then you factor in the youth that's involved at Arsenal. Yeah, they're a great watch, and when sun's shining and, you know, everyone's confident because they've been winning games, you know, you can appear to be better than you actually are. When they get a few, here's a bet another way. If they get started, and they will, as everyone does, they start to lose a few games, say a back-to-back
Like they did last year,
losses, then you'd really find out what you've got in the dressing room.